Habakkuk 3 9 to 12 reads, You split the earth with rivers, the mountains saw you and writhed. Torrents of water swept by, the deep roared and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. In wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. Their fierce wind and earthquake are followed by a downpour. Water floods the earth as in the days of Noah, splitting the earth with rivers. The sea lifts its waves on high, literally lifts his hands on high. This is more flood imagery, but could also be a sign of submission and praise to the Lord. Even the sun and moon stand still in fear of God's awesome power. The flying arrows and flashing spear are more poetic references to lightning. God striding through the earth is perhaps another reference to thunder. And so all the forces of nature, the mountains, the rivers, the streams, the sea, the sun, and the moon, all acknowledge God as Lord as he strides through the earth and thrashes the nations in judgment. Hebrew poetry often borrowed imagery from the mythologies of the surrounding nations. For example, there are several passages in the Bible that speak about God conquering Rahab, the monster of chaos, and Leviathan, the seven headed dragon from the sea. It's not that the biblical writers believed that these creatures were real any more than they believed that the false god Baal was real when they spoke about God defeating Baal. But it was their way of showing that God was superior to all false gods of the nations, that he was the conqueror of all over all his enemies. The section in verses 13 to 15 picks up some of this dragon imagery. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear, you pierced his head when his warriors stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were hiding. You trampled the sea with your horses, churning the great waters. From head to foot in verse 13 is literally neck to tail, picturing God's conquest of the great dragon Leviathan. Of course, Satan is also called dragon in scripture, and so this is a picture of God's final conquest of Satan and his forces. Finally, verse 15 says that God tramples the sea. In the Bible, the sea is a symbol of all evil forces in the world that stand opposed to God. The sun and moon standing still are meant to remind us of Joshua's victory over the Amorites recorded in Joshua 10. Piercing the head of the enemy with his own spear reminds us of David cutting off the head of Goliath with his own sword. Verse 13 speaks of God's coming to deliver his people and to save his anointed. The anointed one in Hebrew language is literally the Messiah, the son of David, who would come to deliver God's people for good. Don't stop with just remembering God's deeds from the past. Ask God to renew his deeds in the present. That's what Habakkuk prayed in Habakkuk 3:2. Renew them in our day, in our time, make them known in wrath, remember mercy. Be blessed.